Hello, my name is Dr. Marshall Flam. I reside in Fresno, California. I was raised in the Bronx, New York, and I'm here today to tell you about my new book, Wordle Limericks. The motto of my book is Laugh and Learn. I've been retired for 10 years after practicing clinical hematology and oncology for 40 years. So I have a great time because I could do whatever I want, which is the definition of retirement. And the things that I like to do is play tennis, when I can, ski. I really enjoy cooking and mixology. And I also sing in a local opera group. But my passion these days is writing daily limericks. And these limericks are focused on and based upon the daily word of the day in the internet game played by 2 to 3 million people every day, Wordle. My book brings together Wordle and limericks. My interest in limericks is based upon my enjoyment of them. I enjoy poetry generally, but limericks have a special dimension in that they're the funniest form of poetry you could imagine. I can recall as a young teenager growing up in the Bronx, standing during the summer on the street corner with friends, whistling at girls and inventing limericks. We'd make them up off the top of our head, we'd laugh, and then we'd rapidly forget them. As an adult, I bought books of limericks. Every limerick that I've read were Baudry or Ribald. Then one day, about 2 years ago, I discovered Wordle. My stepdaughter told me about the game, so I tried it out. It was on number 312, I believe, at the time. I got hooked pretty quickly. I started doing the daily Wordle. And after about 2 or 3 months, I began to take that word that came up every day and incorporate them into a limerick. I'm not sure why I did it. It just seemed like the natural thing to do. And so I did it for a few weeks, and then I started running it by my friends, and they enjoyed it. My wife was a different story. She encouraged me to publish it because every morning I try to read her the limericks, and she maybe got tired of it, maybe she enjoyed it enough. It wasn't clear. But in any case, she said, don't keep reading it to me every morning, go publish it. So that's when I decided to give it a shot. The name Limerick comes from an Irish soldier's song, Take Me Up to Limerick, but it has not originated in Ireland. In fact, the Limerick originated in England. It started both from nursery rhymes like Hickory Dickory Dock, Mouse Ran Up the Clock. Then I have my Flamerick, a Wordle Limerick version of that. It also started in pubs. The hardworking English lower class came home from work, and before going home would stop at a pub. And they would have their beer, and they would sit around and invent limericks. Even though they were illiterate, they still could invent limericks and rhyme. Actually, the very first limerick was a religious rhyme written by St. Thomas Aquinas in the 14th century. Eventually, in 1845, the first collection of 72 limericks was published by a gentleman by the name of Edward Lear. These were illustrated, and they were not that bawdry, as it turns out. The bawdriness was there, but didn't evolve in print until later. Before he died, he managed to publish 212 what he called nonsense limericks. the last in 1872. Subsequently, many books have been published. So there's a whole collection of limericks out there. But what I'm trying to do is a little different. First of all, I'm using the Wordle word of the day to create limericks, and using that word in ways that are varied and are interesting, are potentially educational, funny, and instructive. That's why some of my limericks actually have footnotes explaining what they're about. So, for example, when the word siege came up, number 199 in Wordle, I wrote a limerick about the Second Siege of Vienna. And it revealed how the croissant got its name. My footnote explains this in detail. And for those people that don't know it, and there are many that don't, this becomes an educational experience. I felt the need to explain what Wordle Limericks was based on, and it's based on a fusion between the game of Wordle and the poetry of the limerick. In bringing them together, I felt that my introduction required that I explain what a limerick was and what its history was, what Wordle was and what its history is, and then the forces that brought them together. Actually, I didn't dedicate that section to her. She wrote a preface after my introduction, and it was very amusing and enhanced the understanding of the history of limericks. She edits my limericks when I can get her to do so. She's got a busy life. She doesn't live nearby. But if anything, our collaboration has brought us closer together than we were before. I offered to make her a co-editor, but she declined. Since she's not writing the limericks, she's just editing some of them. She's really good at adding that sixth line, which is not usually done, but which Wordle Limericks allows. Sometimes a seventh line, to enhance the meaning, to twist the meaning in a different direction, or to make the whole limerick more entertaining. So, as an example, the 298th word was chunk, C-H-U-N-K. And this is a perfect illustration of how a sixth line, which is put in parentheses, by the way, can make the limerick from ordinary to funny. From a single chunk of clay, God made Adam one bright day. Then he took from Adam's rib material to make a glib female from his DNA, thereby introducing foreplay. So there's the sixth line. When I see that Wordle word every day, my mind goes in different directions, and wherever that direction takes me, I will create a limerick. Now, it turns out I put these categories together not as a guideline, but a place to insert my limerick, so to speak. And it's for people with certain interests to be able to find just the limericks that cover a category. So for me, they're all enjoyable, but the one, of course, that I like the most, perhaps, because of my background, is the medical and the scientific. But I also enjoy music and sing, so the musical is very interesting to me. But they're all potentially educational and funny. There really should have been 32, but I made 33 unclassifiable, because every now and then you create a limerick you can't put into any of those categories, so I have it all covered. Well, the whole point of my book is to make people laugh and or learn. So if I'm writing a limerick, say, as an example, the naming of the croissant, or how the bagel was invented. This is knowledge that most people don't have on the tip of their fingers. So I felt that I needed to elaborate that. And that allowed me the freedom to choose more obscure things. But even some of the subjects, for example, when the word unite came up, I wrote about the uniting of the two railroads that joined in Promontory, Utah in 1868. And I know that most people know something about this, but the depth of knowledge may not be that great. So that would enhance that. So my goal was to educate and entertain. It is potentially possible if I pulled out the Baudry limericks, and there are roughly 10% of them that are. They're not all clean. It's not a family book. Although if everybody in the group is over 18, I think it's a great book for people to read together. But the point is simply that no opportunity should be left untouched that will allow me, with using these limericks, to make people learn, laugh, enjoy, think. Shortly after midnight, I get online, I go to Wordle Limericks, New York Times, I solve the word. Most of the time, I'll sleep on it, and there'll be different ideas floating through my mind. Then I get up in the morning and come to my desk, open up the computer, and go on my Wordle worksheet. And I'll look up the definition of the word, because often words are used in more than one way, and the meaning can vary for the same word. And of course, by adding an S, you could add an ing, you can incorporate that word within another word, and so there's all kinds of ways you can use that word. And I think about that. And then, in selecting the subject matter, a lot of the times it pops into my head. Sometimes I'll write a Baudry one first to get me myself rolling. Then I'll take a historical one. What made me choose that? Well, either the fact that the word suggested a historical event, or a rhyme for the word suggested a historical event. For example, today, the word was feral, F-E-R-A-L, meaning a domesticated animal that reverts to the wild. But you could also use it to describe a person that's wild and unruly. But it doesn't have a lot of meanings. So I wrote one about a dog that I owned that was chasing squirrels and went feral. I wrote one about trying to domesticate a feral cat, and the results of that, the apartment was filled with scat, and I had to abandon it. And then I wrote one about the Jungle Book, Mowgli being feral. And so that's just an example. The subjects vary so much because I could either select it based on the word itself, the usage of the word, or the usage of the rhyme word. And often, I won't use the word per se. I'll incorporate it within a word, choose a word that has that word within it. And sometimes, I don't do this often, but when the word was refer, R-E-F-E-R, I used refer instead of refer, but I put brackets around that E that didn't exist in refer. So it's a process. After I write the limericks, I then generate the footnotes when applicable. And then I'll send it off to about 10 people that are waiting for my Wordle word limericks every day. Yes, I do. The whole point, once I got the first volume self-published, was to keep going. Today's Wordle word number was 1137. The final Wordle word number would be something like 2310. So we're about halfway there. I am just a little shy of 3 volumes. So volume 2 is done. I just have to edit it, decide when to publish it. Unfortunately, it's costly to self-publish, but regardless, even if I have to publish a limited volume just for my friends and family, and myself, of course, because it's an ego project, then I'll go ahead and publish enough volumes to get all the Wordle words in. So in the area of medicine, limerick number 23 was on July 12th, 2021. The word was crust, C-R-U-S-T. The bread was so old that the crust developed a mold quite robust. Yet Fleming was willing to discover penicillin, not discard it in complete disgust. Now, this, of course, has a footnote about Fleming and the discovery of penicillin. That's one example. And since I referred to it, let me read to you the limerick that describes how the croissant got its name. The Second Siege of Vienna in 1663 ended when Ottoman Turks were forced to flee. With the arrival of the détente, Vienna's bakers invent the croissant, which you'll find today in every bakery. So the story is, during this 3-month siege of Vienna by the Ottoman Turks, and it was the second time in a century that the siege was undertaken, both sides were running out of supplies, and as a last-ditch effort, the Turks tried to dig under the foundation to get into the encampment in the city. And they happened to pick a spot that was right under the bakery, so the Viennese bakers heard them, reported it to the soldiers, who collapsed the floor down on them and stopped the entry. And after that, the Turks left. So the king of Vienna at the time gave these bakers the honor of naming a pastry to celebrate the occasion, and they took the sickle in the Ottoman or Turkish flag and made the pastry that shape, and that's how we got the croissant. I love all my limericks. I do have some that I love more than the others, but my absolute favorite is number 1015. The word force came up on March 30th of 2024. And I did a double limerick. The first is a serious limerick of scientific history. The second follows from it is hysterical. And it goes like this. Force equals acceleration times mass. That's what I learned in physics class. Isaac Newton foresaw motion's second law. Few his genius could ever surpass. So it follows, if you should pass gas, it's true, it does not have much mass, but it has enough force to put a hole in your shorts and evacuate the room really fast. When I was in medical practice, I also did some teaching and I did publish medical papers. So I was co-author on about 65 medical papers over my 40-year career. I was lead author on a major study that affected the treatment of anal canal cancer. There was a international study. I also was a co-editor and author of numerous chapters in the first book ever published on chemoradiation, how to bring them together to treat patients. So I had experience medical writing, but this is a rigid endeavor. You stick to certain norms and you have to prove what you say. By writing these limericks, I have complete freedom to write whatever I want. Another reason why I have 33 categories, because I don't have to limit what I write. In fact, with limericks, I don't have to limit saying dirty words. I can do that as well. So when this idea was put in my brain by my wife to publish Wordle Limericks, it's been completely absorbing, and that's really what I plan to do now. My daily life is not carefree. I still have responsibilities. I have to pay all the bills, and I also travel a lot with my wife. Since we've been together about 13 years now, we've traveled to over 40 countries, just returned from a wonderful trip to Ireland. I don't schedule what I do. About 5-6 times a year, we put on the California Opera Association, a local opera group, puts on performances on stage. And so I spend some time doing that, rehearsing for it, taking an occasional singing lesson. I don't sing opera. I tried, it's not my forte. Forte was a word recently. See how infectious Wordle is. But I do sing ballads and show music and a variety of different things, old songs. I play tennis twice a week regularly with 2 different groups of guys. Tennis is a wonderful game because it has great social interactions and it's great exercise. It's hell on your knees though. I cook fairly often because my wife lets me and is happy to let me assume the burden. But once in a while I can actually get her to cook. And so I do what I have to do, what I feel like doing. It's a mix of things. I enjoy reading, and I read about 1 book every 2 weeks, different varied subjects, which I'm sure helps my input into selecting subjects for Wordle Limericks. And so I'm just grateful that my 40-year career was so rewarding that I feel satisfied with what I accomplished, how many people I helped, how many lives I saved, that I could guiltlessly enjoy my years of retirement and hope that I live long enough to have many more years, which is a possibility since my parents both lived into their late 90s. My advice would be to follow your inclinations. If there's something that you really enjoy, then spending a lot of time and working hard at it is going to be pleasurable, not tedious. So for example, when I need to review my limericks over again to get them ready to publish, I enjoy that process even though it's hard work. Now, it's true I try to get my granddaughter to review the footnotes for grammatical errors, punctuation errors, but so my advice is to follow your heart, follow your inclinations, follow your dreams, do what you want to do. Don't let anybody convince you that it's not doable. Many things have been accomplished that seemed impossible, but they become possible with hard work and cleverness applied to the problem. Right now, I only plan to continue to write Wordle Limericks and to try to publish all the necessary volumes to incorporate the final Wordle word on October 20th, plus or minus a few days, 2027. After that, as I mentioned earlier, I might consider other avenues. One of my daughters is a teacher, and she is fluent in French, and she is trying to get me to write other forms of poetry because she doesn't love limericks. But I don't find the draw or appeal to it. I'm completely drawn to limericks because the element of laughter that very few other forms will allow you to enjoy. So after the final Wordle word is out, maybe I'll get into something else. I don't know. At that point in time, I'll be a lot older. I'm already 82 years of age, so in 2027, add another 3 years, I'll be almost 85. So will I have the mental capacity? I don't know. Probably I will, but who knows? Nothing's certain in life. The only thing certain is uncertainty.